Hey friend, I am so glad you're back in the Little Red Farm kitchen with me today. If you don't know, I'm Mindy. I am the raw milk dairy farmer here, and today we are making butter from fresh cream. Before we start, we are going to talk about the difference between whole milk and cream, because I do get this question a lot. So grab yourself a fun drink, put on some relaxing or energizing, whatever you need, put on some music. I'm going to get the ingredients. Okay, so I do get the question more often than you'd think, like, can I just use whole milk? I get raw milk from the store or from a farmer. Why can't I use that? Why isn't it working? We sell our milk with all of its cream on it. So normally it'll separate. There will be a line right about here. This was just shaken up. So that mixes the cream back in with the milk. So the cream is going to rise to the top. The fat floats. When you go to the grocery store, your options are going to be milk, which is going to be skim, 1%, 2%, or whole milk. When you buy from the store, that 1% is 1% cream or 1% fat, right? So when you buy raw whole milk with all its cream from a dairy farmer, that's going to be way more fat and cream than even whole milk from the store, okay? Your next option at a grocery store is going to be half and half. So it's going to be half milk, half cream, okay? When you buy cream, say from our dairy farm, you get pourable, regular cream. Your other option at the store is going to be heavy whipping cream. It's going to be thicker because they've pulled more of the thin cream off. What I'm trying to say is don't compare your raw milk dairy farmers regular cream to heavy whipping cream at the store. It's not the same thing. So when I make cream, it goes into a cream separator, it spins. If you look at my other videos, there's videos of it in there. With our milk here at the farm, there's about one of these in every gallon of milk. So this is 2 cups, 16 ounces, 1 pint, 3 different ways of saying the same thing. Usually with 3 of these, I can get about a pound of butter. We'll see what it ends up being today. But the thing you have to remember is different times of year, the butter fat content is different. So this is something I would have never known if we didn't have cows, if I wasn't living here, if I wasn't making the cream, I would have never seen this. So because it's a lactation cycle and lactation cycles match what the baby needs, which is what it's to feed. And yes, it is for the babies. However, the babies get first dibs. There's plenty of milk. That's why we sell it. And then the cows get feed. And that's how they pay the hay bill. It's all a very beautiful system, okay? And nobody goes hungry. If you want to see how we care for our animals, watch the other videos. Because it is a lactation cycle, in the winter, when the babies would need more fat to maintain their body temperature in the cold, there's more butter fat in the cream, in the milk, because that's what the babies need. In the summer, when the babies would need more hydration because it's hot out, there is less butter fat and the cream is thinner and you don't get as much cream out of the milk. So it's really fascinating. It does change based on the time of year. So now that we've covered what the difference between whole milk and cream is, and this is all milk from our farm, the Little Red Farm. This is raw milk, raw cream. You can make this with cream from the store if you don't have access to raw milk or that's not something you're comfortable in using. The tools you're going to need. I'm going to use Be Nice. I'm going to use my old KitchenAid. This girl has been with me since the number of my age still ended with a teen. So be nice to her. I know she's not the prettiest and she may not be the best maintained, but she's still here. You can use a blender. Blenders, the only kicker is you don't want it to get too hot on the bottom. And when it gets to the whip stage, it's a little harder to get through, okay? We're going to start by putting 2 of these in the KitchenAid mixer. So come over here. I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, I've got my KitchenAid mixer. I have my whisk attachment on. You could use a paddle. That actually probably would work better, but mine does this ka-chunk thing. I'm going to go ahead and pour my cream in here. I found I can fit about 4 cups in here, and it works good because when you get to the whipping stage and the butter breaking stage, it's going to get pretty sloshy. So the goal is to make less of a mess if you can. I tend to make a mess whenever I cook or do anything. Now, the goal is not to beat the snot out of it. The goal is to slosh it around. So you're trying to slap those butter particles, those butter fat molecules together so they stick. And then they make a ball. And then you can squeeze out all the buttermilk. So we're gonna put it on 2. We have a nice mix going on. I'm gonna show you how to make it in a blender while this does its thing. All right, the other way you can do this is in a blender. The biggest thing is to make sure that the base of your blender does not get overheated, because that heat will radiate up and it kind of melts the butter. So for this one, I'm only gonna put 1 in here. The kicker with the blender is that when it turns into whipped cream, it's kind of hard to get it to break from that point, because you don't have a whole paddle going on in here or a whisk. You just have these tiny little blades at the bottom. So sometimes you gotta like tap it down a little bit, but it still will eventually go. Again, the goal is slow movement, not the fastest you can go. So when you pick your blender speed, go slow. Helps if you plug your blender in. Sauce smoothie. It's already turning. Can you see how it's kind of thick up there? I'm trying to still find the lowest setting, but this apparently has pulse settings on it, and that's working pretty good. Okay, I'm gonna try to show you the process as it goes along. So, see how it's thick? That's your whipped cream, okay? That's your first thing that you're gonna get to. And whipped cream like this is actually really, really yummy. What's gonna happen next is it's gonna break into buttermilk and butter. When it breaks, you're gonna see the sloshy. You're gonna wanna go a few more times to let it get that butter stuck together. One of the reasons I do like a blender or like a smoothie maker is it gets to this whipped cream stage really, really fast. I do like doing whipped cream here and using the KitchenAid for breaking the butter, but that also means getting 2 things dirty. So we're gonna listen to the sound, and we're also going to watch, because once you start getting liquid swirling around in here again, that's how you know it's broken. There's a big chunk of butter in the bottom. So we're gonna shake this just a little bit, see where we're at. We're getting there, but not quite. I'm gonna shake it, get it down to the bottom. All right, did you see how all of a sudden it was liquid? So look, there's liquid in there. There's my butter. I'm gonna do it just a little bit longer. Make sure that my butter all sticks together. All right, that's pretty liquidy. So next we're gonna strain it. Meanwhile, over here at the KitchenAid, we're still just kind of chugging away. It's getting a little bit thicker, but it definitely takes a little longer in here. Right, look at that. You see it? All right, we're gonna strain this off, and then we're gonna rinse with cool water. Guys, look how pretty she is. If you want, save your buttermilk, feed it to the pets. If you don't have anything you can use it for, go ahead and put it in your garden. It would be great fertilizer. We're gonna do as cold a water as possible, and I'm gonna use this bowl so you can kind of see what's coming out of it. You see how the water is cloudy? That's buttermilk that's still in the butter. Do you hear my KitchenAid just percolating away back there? She's working hard for the butter. And then you can start squeezing this together. Make sure your hands are clean. There is still stuff coming out. You want to use cold water because that keeps everything together. This is the worst part of butter making. It's having to squeeze all the water out. So this was one container of cream. I'm going to set my little trophy there. Your hands are going to be super, super soft when you're done because, you know, you're going to have butter all over them. So this was from 2 cups, 16 ounces. I personally like my butter salted. I do feel like the salt helps push out some of that water. And this is also why you should have paddles, because your paddles are not your body temperature. They're going to help not melt your butter. But you can just see every time I squeeze it, a couple more drops come out. And the more of this liquid that you get squeezed out of your butter, the longer it's going to keep. This is not as fun, but this is a very important part of it if you want your butter to stay fresher longer. All right, so we just made butter. Let's check on our KitchenAid. All right, I turned my speed up on my KitchenAid a little bit. I went to like 4 to 6. I wouldn't go higher than that. Now it's at whipped cream. Probably could have gone faster if I started a little higher. I don't think you want to go up here, but maybe started a little higher than I did. We'll see if we can catch the moment when it breaks. All right, it is starting to splash, and it's going to break in just a second here. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. There we go. Now it needs to just get those pieces to stick together. So now you can see the chunks of butter. You can see the liquid showing up around the sides. And you hear the splashing. That's usually how I know it's done, even if it is under a towel so it doesn't get all over the counter. It's on the lowest it'll go. And this is okay. It's going to let it all stick together. Having it stick together is better because otherwise you get a really soft butter and it's harder to get all that buttermilk out. So just let it do its job. Once it's done, there you go. All right, I have my sieve, whatever you call it. But here's the thing. In the time, I did 2 of these cartons in here. In that same amount of time, I did 5 of those cartons in my little Ninja Bullet. So in my opinion, a blender or a Ninja Bullet is going to be faster. Each one of these chunks came out. This one was from a different week. So isn't it funny? Like just even week to week, the amount of butter fat that's in there changes. This is what I was trying to show you by softer butter. This one I did not let mix and it's softer. You can kind of see how soft that is. Or this one, I let it mix till it was more clumpy and look how much harder that one is, which is a good thing. You do want to go ahead and let those bigger chunks form. And then you just dump them right in the bowl. I'm going to go ahead and I have my buttermilk here. Here's another thing I find really fascinating. I feel like the buttermilk is kind of like more of a caramely color. You see? We have our butter. We are going to rinse this off really good. So again, cold water. And you can see how cloudy that water is in there. So we're going to rinse this as good as we can. We're just going to let those chunks kind of stick together. So this was 2 of those. So that's why there's more butter in here. And then that gets a little bit harder to handle and squeeze out. My hands can only do so much. And the water is very cold. Oh boy. Did a good job on this one. It's nice and hard. But you're going to see, again, you see the liquid just kind of dripping out of it. That's the buttermilk. And if you leave the buttermilk in there, it is going to make your butter sour faster. So it contributes to the fermentation process. Let's see how much less air is in there. Oh, I forgot my salt. Don't forget to put a little salt on. I always get too much. Who needs an arm workout when you can just make butter? I do feel like this has less air in it, so I guess that's the benefit to the longer process. When you use a blender, it does chop it in smaller pieces, and you do end up with more air and smaller pieces of butter fat, so then there's more spots for the buttermilk to hide out and stay in there. So there's my butter. Here's my buttermilk. Let's get really fancy. Let's weigh this. So it was a 16-ounce jar of cream. This made about 6 ounces of butter. 6.5. That one's 5. That one's 4. That one's 5. So I'd say they're probably, if you evened them all out, they'd be 5 ounces each. So like I said, about 3 is going to make about 1 pound of butter. All right, now we need to store our butter. So you're using pasteurized dairy, it'll probably store fine in your fridge for you. But if you're using raw butter, remember that it does have pre and probiotics in it. Even though we took out a lot of the stuff that it uses to grow those, these are still going to ferment and age. So I like to store mine in the freezer. We're going to use parchment paper. I'm going to push this to a nice little square, make a little butter cube out of it. And then I'll take these and I'll put them all in a Ziploc bag and I'll store them in my freezer. And then I'll just pull out one at a time. And that way they're not in my fridge for longer than maybe a week. The other thing that you can use to store your butter is a butter bell like this. It's bell shaped on the inside. You put your butter in the bell, you smush it down, and then you fill this with water. There's actually a little line on the inside So you fill it up to the line. You have your butter in there, and then you put it in there, and the water actually seals off your butter. Then when you take it out, it's not actually in your butter. It just comes in this around to seal this. And then your butter's going to be soft because you can leave it out on your counter. I do have some butter bells linked in my Amazon shop. I'll drop the link below. This is so cute. This was given to me for my birthday by my dear friends. I hope this helps on your butter making journey. A few things to look for, a few things to understand. Like I said, it's actually a lot faster to use a blender or like a NutriBullet or a smoothie maker or a food processor, but you can use your KitchenAid mixer. It is probably gonna give you less water in there, but use what you have on hand. Worst case, grab a jar, give it to your kids, let them shake it. Make sure you store it in the freezer if you're gonna not use it right away. If you're smart, put a date on your Ziploc, put parchment paper, stack them in a Ziploc bag, tuck them in your freezer, and you're gonna have fresh butter whenever you want it. Thanks for making butter with me. I got a kitchen to clean up. You got some food to make, I'm sure. Make sure you take good care of yourself too, not just everybody else. We'll see you soon.